What if your country earned billions, but your life never changed? What if wealth flowed into the system, but never reached the people? Over the past few years, Iran generated nearly $193 billion from oil. That's not a small number. That's the kind of money that builds cities, creates jobs, transforms nations. But something didn't add up, because while billions flowed in, the economy struggled, prices rose, and people took to the streets. So the question isn't just, where did the money go? It's, why didn't it reach the people? To understand this mystery, you have to understand one thing. Oil is the backbone of Iran's economy. For decades, it has been the country's primary source of income. When oil prices rise, money flows in. When exports increase, revenue grows. And in theory, that wealth should fuel development, infrastructure, jobs, economic growth. But theory and reality are not always the same. In recent years, Iran generated an estimated $193 billion in oil revenue. Despite restrictions, the money still came in through exports, through alternative trade routes, through complex global networks. So on the surface, the system was working. Money was entering the country. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because while revenue increased, economic growth did not follow. This is the core contradiction. A country earning billions, while its economy struggles. GDP growth slowed, inflation surged, living standards declined. This is not how resource wealth is supposed to work. In most cases, high revenue leads to expansion. But in this case, something was breaking the chain between income and impact. The answer lies in how the money is used, because generating wealth is not the same as distributing it. A large portion of oil revenue flows into state-controlled systems. Spending is directed toward government operations, subsidies, strategic sectors, but not always toward productivity, not always toward long-term growth, and not always toward the people. This creates a critical problem. Money circulates, but it doesn't multiply. Sanctions add another layer to this problem. They don't just limit income, they distort how money moves. Trade becomes more complicated. Transactions become indirect. Costs increase. In many cases, Iran cannot sell oil freely at full market value. Deals are negotiated through intermediaries. Discounts are applied. Profits shrink. So even when billions are earned, less of it is actually kept. And this is where the story becomes human, because behind every statistic are real lives. Families facing rising costs, workers struggling to keep up, young people questioning their future. They see the headlines, they hear the numbers, billions in revenue, but their reality tells a different story. Because when wealth doesn't reach the population, frustration builds, and eventually it spills into the streets. When people lose trust in the system, the consequences go beyond economics. Confidence declines, investment slows, uncertainty grows, because an economy doesn't run on money alone. It runs on belief. And once that belief begins to break, the entire system becomes unstable. This pattern isn't unique. History has shown similar stories across different nations. Countries rich in resources, but struggling with growth. Because the real challenge isn't earning wealth, it's managing it, turning revenue into real economic progress, and ensuring that growth reaches everyone, not just the system. From this mystery, three powerful lessons emerge. Revenue alone does not create prosperity. How money is distributed matters more than how much is earned. Trust is the foundation of every economic system. What if your country is not just about missing money? It's about a broken connection between wealth and the people. But here's the twist. The mystery isn't where the $193 billion went, because most of it did go somewhere. The real mystery is why it didn't transform the economy, why it didn't stabilize prices, why it didn't improve lives. Because in the end, this isn't a story about missing money. It's a story about a system that couldn't turn wealth into prosperity. If you want to understand how money really moves beyond numbers, beyond headlines. Subscribe to Finance Club because rule number one is to always talk about money.